Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemer's Bible, and we're a man short today. We have no Lorence with us. He couldn't make it this one last minute. Said, "Sorry guys, can't be bothered." No,
That's not fair.
That's not fair. No, he apologized. Couldn't make it for this one. Had something else going on. He couldn't get toward.
He had an emergency.
So.
Yeah. He's okay though. But.
Yeah. So Lilith, you're gonna have to carry the show today.
Oh no, I've never done that before. At least tell me that Tomer has like ungodly amounts of commentary that he can be just.
Oh please, it's only 12 pages.
Well, that's perfect. One for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. You have to give
and most of it is godly commentary. So.
Ew. Icky.
All right. Well, anybody have any opening comments then?
Oh, well, what are we doing today?
Exodus 18.
Exodus 18. Does anything happen in that one?
Yes, this is the part where Jethro comes to visit Moses and advises him on judicial things.
Yes, this is where his Moabite father-in-law is not just
Midianite, not Moabite.
Midianite. Oh, sorry. Where his Midianite father-in-law took care of him and, advised him and was really a strength and a help to his leadership, in addition to having rescued
Don't give me any spoilers. Let's just hear the story.
All right.
I want to hear what Jethro did and how he got found out by Jed and Grandma.
Oh no, he's yeah. Well, whose turn is it to read?
I actually haven't read in a while. I don't mind.
I was going to suggest you.
Yeah. Okay. Read up to 12. Up
so that
to
includes
12. Yes.
Okay. Now Moses' father-in-law Jethro, the chieftain of Midian, heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, that the Lord had taken Israel out of Egypt. That's a bit weird. So Moses' father-in-law Jethro took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after she had been sent away, and her two sons, one of whom was named Gershom because he said, "I was a stranger in a foreign land," and one who was named Eliezer because he said, "The God of my father came to my aid and rescued me from Pharaoh's sword." Now Moses' father-in-law Jethro and his sons and his wife came to Moses to the desert where he was encamped, to the mountain of God. And he said to Moses, "I, Jethro, your father-in-law, am coming to you, and your wife and her two sons with her." So Moses went out towards Jethro, prostrated himself and kissed him, and they greeted one another, and they entered the tent. Mm-hmm. Moses told his father-in-law...
And then some funky music started playing.
I don't think he had the Pornhub, surround sound kind of set up in tents in the desert. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that God had yet bestowed Wi-Fi upon, his loyal followers.
Keep going, Isaac.
Yeah, all right. Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians on account of Israel, and all the hardships that had befallen them on the way, and the Lord had saved them. Jethro was happy about all the good that the Lord had done for Israel, that he had rescued them from the hands of the Egyptians. Jethro said, "Blessed is the Lord who has rescued you from the hands of the Egyptians and from the hand of Pharaoh, who has rescued the people from beneath the hands of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all the deities, for with the thing that they plotted, he came upon them."
Ew.
So I guess Tomer will have some explanation of that.
Already
then Moses' father-in-law Jethro sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings to God, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel came to dine with Moses's father-in-law before God.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So I want to go first to verse 2 here. Moses had sent away his wife. And the word for sent away here is in Hebrew, shiluchea. that has the stem shin lamet chet, which could also mean to divorce, as seen in Deuteronomy 24, verses 1-4. The Mechilta is opinionated whether Moses divorced his wife or merely sent her away. While the Vulgate and the Aramaic translations render sent away, the Samaritan text reads divorced, and the Septuagint after her dismissal, and the Peshitta after her release.
You know, I believe we may have not focused too much on this in the actual reading, but at one point during the whole, plagues, and then Pharaoh yells at him, and blah, 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 basically things were getting too hot. And it does say that he sent his wife and children, sons, away back to her father because, Pharaoh, obviously, he wasn't exactly in Pharaoh's good books with the whole plaguing thing, and in those days and long after them, your family could certainly suffer for your problems and your bad social skills and tendency to throw frogs.
Does it say in the middle of the story that he sent them away?
I'm fairly certain it did, but it would have been a very casual comment. I should have looked it up before this one, but
right, because
she does travel with him to Egypt, and there's that whole thing with the random,
the circumcision.
Yeah, the bridegroom of blood.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a commentary that said, I guess Thomas was saying that Rashi says that that on the way when he met Aaron comes out and he's like, "Why are you bringing them with you to Egypt? There's enough people in Egypt that need to be saved. Why are you bringing more?" And then he sent them back to her father. But if it's in the text itself,
wonder why he had to have a sudden instant circumcision. It sort of seems to be more of a, it might have actually been a later insert or something, or just like, because initially she comes with him, and then her father brings her to meet him again, and so you're like, where did she warp? Did she? And
someone is coming in and getting sent away.
I think it's P-Town.
P-Town, stop being Zipporah. You don't have the hips for it.
I'm going to read the first comment in. Eric Wander says, who was Moses's father-in-law? Jethro, Hobab, or Reuel?
Yep. He has multiple names.
All of them, basically. Because even Chazal said that he had 7 names, in fact. They don't mind that they had multiple names.
I haven't read the whole question yet. I should have.
Yeah, so
the SAB lists this as a contradiction. Is it really one or Moses had many wives, or maybe Zipporah had many fathers?
No, this seems to be another case, as Lawrence and I frequently talk about, of different sources, and us trying to put together different sources and understand where different sources that they didn't really feel they could cut out the part people were familiar with were sort of woven together, and you have the contradiction where different names are given, and you can see it in the text, even slightly different styles, sometimes even in translation it can be that blatant depending. This particular chapter 18 appears to be quite coherent and potentially from a single broader source, or at least it doesn't have a bunch of interconnecting bits woven in. But the first time we see his father-in-law, there is in fact that change in back and forth, I think like 3 times in the text, which is surprising. It's not a very long chapter. I mean,
sometimes
it's not that long.
Sometimes the text just uses both names without any explanation, and then the commentators are like, "Oh, he was called by both names," to kind of explain it away. And sometimes the text feels the need to explain where this new name comes from, which is probably like, Jacob and Israel, or
Abraham and Abraham. Sarah,
or even Hoshea and Joshua.
Yeah.
He also goes through a name change, which is not really explained in the text, but
it
just says Moses named him. So
and again, this seems to be a case of harmonizing older stories that had roots in localized mythology that was quite similar, probably had maybe had an original source somewhere. Again, you don't see it as much in this chapter, but you're absolutely right that it's, the conflict is all the way back. And that's why we have room for all the commentaries of people saying, well, obviously this high priest of Midian had 6 names because reasons.
Yeah, he has 7 names.
7 names, yeah.
Of
Ru'el,
course.
Yeter.
I think I mentioned
Yeter,
that.
which is just a shortened version of Jethro,
Yeah.
Jethro. Chavav, Heber, Hever, Kani, and Putiel.
Yeah.
Why harmonize the 3 given names when you can add 4 more?
Yep.
Yeah.
And 7 typological number.
Yeah. There is an alternative theory that Ru'el is the grandfather of Zipporah, and
sort of like a head
the
patriarch
text.
of the family.
Yeah, so he's the patriarch, and he's called their father because like grandfathers are called fathers as well, or something like that. Or grandchildren are called children, which is.
I wonder what happened to P-Town. He was in and out and in, and then he's just gone.
Maybe bad internet connection. I don't know.
Maybe maybe we finally got to the rapture. Who knows?
Oh, I hope not. My mom's bringing home takeout.
All right. So,
well, I'll be happy about the real estate rates.
Yeah.
When all these properties suddenly become available. All right. So Matt White says people are intentionally tuning in to study the Bible here every stream. It's a small miracle wrought by Aaron. How many priests could do this without threats of damnation?
Well, I don't threaten people with damnation, but
threaten them with a good time.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't have much to threaten them with. I will drink gin if you don't. No, I'm going to drink gin anyway. Well. Never mind. Oh yeah.
All right, Thomas, did you have more on?
Yeah. I have more. Verse 4 here. He saved me from the sword of Pharaoh. Most commentators wrote that this refers to when Moses killed the Egyptians and escaped from Egypt. Rashi, based on Exodus about 131, writes, when Dathan and Abiram made the disclosure regarding the matter of the Egyptian whom Moses had killed and Pharaoh wished to slay Moses, his neck became as a column of marble so that the sword was powerless against him.
Now that's a stick-necked person.
Yes, it is.
I could be wrong about it being in the text. As I mentioned about Zipporah being sent back, I thought it was in the text, but honestly, that could have been just the Christian justification, which, I mean.
That it was getting dangerous, so he sent her home.
Well, yeah, I thought it was in the text. I'll have to look and make sure, see if it is. But it.
Yeah, I think the Jewish commentaries are like she disappears from the narrative at this point, so that's probably the point where she was sent home.
With the babies who wouldn't stop crying when they were trying to launch frogs at Pharaoh.
Verse 6 here, the Septuagint and Peshitta translate, and it was told to Moses, behold, Jethro, your father-in-law, is coming to you. Possibly considering verse 7, which Sana argues can only imply that Jethro announced his arrival through a messenger. This change, therefore, intended to make the story more clear.
Yes. Of course, I'm surprised they didn't go with the better alternative, which was, it came to him in a dream.
I think dreams are for the Gentiles.
Or a vision of an angel. Well, that's different.
I got another comment I'm a little confused about. It says Todd Engel offers $10. Thank you. And says, hey, Aaron, I just thought I'd let you know that the verse you have as Numbers 2:17 in the intro is actually Numbers 31:15-18. Thought you'd like to know so that you can be accurate. Love all, and hail Satan. Where do I have this in the intro?
I think he's referring. So in the intro, we have the Bible verses in the Bible. So it's possible that.
That.
So I'll check it.
Okay,
and
so
if it's not correct, I'll have that changed for the next.
Because I remember giving you Numbers 31.
Yeah, the only one I added was the last one, the fool's verse, because it takes a fool to add a fool's verse, I guess.
Okay, verse 9. Jethro was delighted. So Avishur writes here, translators and commentators debated about the derivation and meaning of the verb vayichad, translated to rejoiced or delighted. The Septuagint translates shuddered from chet resh daled. Chazal, in the Talmud Sanhedrin 94a, derived it from the stem chet daled daled, to cut, saying he felt as though cuts were made over his flesh. The Aramaic translations, however, derived it from the stem chet daled hey, to rejoice in Aramaic. Traditional commentators and most modern commentators accepted this interpretation. The word chedva, joy, which appears in 1 Chronicles 16:27, is based on this stem. Ugaritic and Akkadian also have this stem with the meaning of joy.
I do not think of joy as a feeling of cuts all over my body, and
Yes.
geez, I thought I was uncomfortable with my in-laws.
It's the two interpretations are opposites. One is he was happy to hear the news, and the other one was he was not disgraced,
Greatly
but
distressed.
like felt he was
Anxious,
distressed
maybe.
by anxious about because he was a convert or something, whatever.
And also didn't fit
And-
into high school, so
Yeah, and
Had
then
that-
Rush
that
says this is
annoying
the
habit.
source. This is the source of the saying, which is in the Talmud: "Do not disgrace a Gentile in the presence of a convert, even up to the 10th generation after conversion." So, as in, like, you shouldn't make a convert feel bad by talking bad about their ancestry, or even
Right.
like non, if that makes sense.
As
even
not
up
like
to
a
the
pure-
10th generation. How carefully they measured this shit back then.
Check on the
it's probably
Mormons.
just a typological number.
Well, there
Yeah,
was
it's
a
logical.
great deal, in the concept of generations and the concept of your ancestry. We see this here. Obviously, a lot of oral history, a lot of mnemonics, probably. Typically, the only people who care about, I am the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, who was the great conqueror, are people who are like have some manner of status, the aristocracy, perhaps someone who felt they had some sort of claim that would help them in being a merchant or something like that. But the average person, they'd have a far more simple view of the farmer, my family has farmed this generations,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
And you'd think someone who is descended from a convert wouldn't have that as something that they would remember 10 generations later.
You
It
would
wouldn't be
hope.
important.
But I have
And
seen...
so maybe the saying is like, you don't know who might be descended from a convert, so don't talk bad about Gentiles.
And
I just don't understand keeping up with the 10th generation thing. I mean, just look at our 10th, look at where we are and try to trace back to your 10th generation. I think I'm especially awkward in that because I'm living in the United States where we're kind of a mixing bowl. But then my family came from a very small town where they'd been there for many generations. So if we were to trace my father's and my mother's lineage back 10 generations, it'd be to the same couple.
Oh dear. Well, I in fairness, I don't think I have that problem because on my mother's side, my mother and father it came from very different, backgrounds. My mother's side, through my matrilineal line, my aunt has done a genealogy, and she believes she's traced us to British aristocracy that we fell out with a woman running away with, I don't know if it was the butler or the groomsman, and then not making it to the reading of the will of the deceased husband, ex-husband. And yeah, it was all very scandalous and dramatic. So, but that was several generations back, and I haven't seen the actual paperwork on that one, but it's a damn good story.
Okay. Shall we resume, or are you done yet?
I have final comment here. Verse 11. For he did this to those who had treated Israel arrogantly. So I heard Isaac stumble here a bit, and I don't fault you. And the meaning of here is uncertain. KJV translates, "For in the thing wherein they dealt proudly, he was above them." JPS, "Yes, by the result of their very schemes against the people." The word that is translated to arrogantly or proudly here is zadu. The most common interpretation of this phrase is that because the Egyptians schemed against Israel, God has made judgment upon them, reading Zadu from the stem Zain Vav Daled or Zain Yud Daled. Another opinion is given by the Talmud Sotah 11a, which reads Zadu from Genesis 25:29, via Zed meaning boiling and Nazid meaning stew or something boiled. And so they read the phrase as, in the pot wherein they had boiled, therein were they themselves boiled.
Sort of like the Proverbs, if a man digs a hole, he will fall into it. If a man rolls a stone, it will roll back on him. Kind of, you made the bed, now lie in it, kind of a scenario.
Isn't there like, isn't there a thing like hooked by their own petard or something like that?
Hoist on their own petard, yes.
Hoisted on their own petard, whatever that is.
It's, I believe you. I believe it's like a spiked, like a standard, but with a a spike on the end, like a spear. And I think I could be wrong. Someone in the comments correct me. This is not actually Aaron. You might know better.
Now, how would I know about somebody else's petard?
I was under the impression you had a little bit of expertise in armor and weapons of bygone eras.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a historical word meaning a small bomb made of a metal or wooden box filled with powder used to blast down a door or to make a hole in a wall. And the phrase hoisted by one's own petard is have one's plans to cause trouble for others backfire on them. So I don't know why it's hoisted.
Yeah, the meaning like is there.
That in the air.
Send you, well, depending. Yeah, a bomb could send you sky high.
Yeah, that might be it.
So we have another comment from Trevor and Wright says, why do some believe that the Egyptians were responsible for imposing their belief on the ancient Canaanites when there is clearly no evidence that they ever did such? Well, there's no evidence for any of this, is there? So it doesn't matter. It's just all storytelling.
People feel obligated to make these stories true, which leads to making excuses for things that are obviously contradictory either to itself or to demonstrable facts. And that leads to a lot of excuse building. And thus, the field of theology was born.
I'm going to jump to another couple of comments real quick before Tomer takes off. Matt White says, a stupid question here. When did the people of the scriptures begin calling themselves Jews?
In the scriptures. I mean, I think in Esther already they are called Jews.
Yeah. So it's just before the Babylonian.
The Persians, I think. I'm not very good with the periods. So
I think it was before the Babylonian exile, but it was they would have been referring to like
there were
the
two
other
kingdoms
of this place.
Yeah. The northern kingdom was Israel, the southern kingdom was Judah. And this is, at least in part, an effort to harmonize their histories and bring together a collective narrative where they were always family and then they split, but they still, because again, these are people with a lot of the same mythology, a lot of the same sort of heroes of legend, like David and Goliath kind of stuff. And so, I don't know, we were always meant to be united, and this is the story in which we find ourselves.
And then one more comment before we continue.
They would have called themselves Hebrews before.
Or Israelites.
The Israelites,
that might be more of a religious
northern, southern.
Yeah,
perhaps.
And this one is for Tomer. It says, Jimmy Gnarly the Grim asks, is Tomer AI?
Oh, God. I hope not.
No, he's just a smarty pants.
I would say he is. He's altogether intelligent.
Oh, that's too kind.
That's true.
It's much better than the direction I was going, because it was the Genesis Apologetics, a creationist group, uses an Autobot voice to do their narration, and I have regarded it as an example of artificial ignorance.
Oh, that poor computer. I'm telling you, when the computers gain sentience and take over, I'm going to need to apologize to them for ever having to spout such nonsense. And I'm a complete dumbass because it is in the text. It's just literally verse 2 here. There's a little throwaway after Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, blah, blah, blah. Jethro received
Yeah.
her, yada yada yada, and then he brings them back. So there's this.
The
I
question
guess
is, when did they get sent back?
yeah, I guess the story that I had sort of generally understood was that sometime during the whole Pharaoh's getting edgy and he has lots of baby killing happy soldiers. Maybe we should,
Right.
you know,
that's a fair interpretation.
And then one last one I have to read is Jake C offers $19.99. Thank you. It says, Aaron. I don't know why. And this is going to be
one
awkward,
A.
It should be only one A. I was going to complain about that, but what are you going to do? He's added too many of everything else. I have a polar bear sleeping directly under a wheeled office chair because the dog.
Why do you
doesn't
have a polar
understand.
bear? Aren't they endangered?
If I shift my weight at all, I'm going to roll a wheel over an ear or one of his lips or something. I mean, he's so loyal? It's amazing. I mean, he's wonderfully loyal, but it means he's always underfoot. He's always under my wheels, and he doesn't understand why I keep moving him. You can't be there.
The floof has chosen you.
Get up.
The floof
Get
has
up.
chosen you. Love and praise to the floof.
Get up.
The dragon bonds with the.
Get up. Get up. Get up. Come on.
The trainer.
Get up. Get up. Come on. Get up.
How to train your blue-eyed white dragon.
There we go. Thank you.
Dragons can be fuzzy. They have no taxonomic category. Why not?
That's interesting. Like mythological creatures are always don't fit within any normal taxonomy. They're always a chimera of some sort.
Somebody has a video about that.
Indeed, but we're not going to talk about that today.
Yeah. Isaac just finished this chapter.
Okay. Verse 13. It came about on the next day that Moses sat down to judge the people, and the people stood before Moses from the morning until the evening. When Moses... Are you supposed to say Moses' father, or do you say Moses's?
I think it's just Moses. At least in English, the apostrophe is after the S, indicating the possessive without adding an extra S, because it just sounds...
But pronouncing, you don't pronounce an extra sound. Okay. No. That makes sense.
Just Moses.
When Moses' father-in-law saw what he was doing to the people, he said, "What is this thing that you are doing to the people? Why do you sit by yourself while all the people stand before you from morning till evening?" Moses said to his father-in-law, "For the people come to me to seek God. If any of them has a case, he comes to me, and I judge between a man and his neighbor, and I make known the statutes of God and his teachings." Moses' father-in-law said to him, "The thing you are doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people who are with you, for the matter is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will advise you, and may the Lord be with you. You represent the people before God, and you shall bring the matters to God, and you shall admonish them concerning the statutes and the teachings, and you shall make known to them the way they shall go and the deeds they shall do. But you shall choose out of the entire nation men of substance, God-fearers, men of truth, who hate monetary gain, and you shall appoint over them leaders over thousands, leaders over hundreds, leaders over 50s, and leaders over 10s. And they shall judge the people at all times, and it shall be that any major matter they shall bring to you, and they themselves shall judge every minor matter, thereby making it easier for you, and they shall bear the burden with you. If you do this thing when the Lord commands you, you will be able to survive, and also all this people will come upon their place in peace." Moses obeyed. I'm a little
confused.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused about the translation because, it says, God-fearing men, men of truth. Well, which one?
Oh, stop bringing reality into the fairy tale.
Sorry. Continue. Verse 24.
Moses obeyed his father-in-law, and he did all that he said. Moses chose men of substance out of all of Israel and appointed them as heads of the people, leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of 50s, and leaders of 10s. And they would judge the people at all times. A difficult case they would bring to Moses, but any minor case they themselves would judge. Moses saw his father-in-law off, and he went away to his land.
Okay. I know Tomer has some stuff, and probably, but there's a kind of interesting segue here from verse where it comes from verse 21. Aaron was recently testifying about the involvement of the Old Testament and Moses, etc., and our form of government in the United States and here in Texas. And verse 21 is often cited by David Barton. Has anybody ever heard of David Barton?
Oh, remind me. I'm
pseudo
he's one of these. Yeah, pseudo historian is a good description. He's one of those fundamentalists who likes to give the disinformation campaign that America was founded as a Christian nation and that our judicial system is based on the 10 Commandments.
A lot of people. He has like about 11 quotes that only are found by him referencing them. There's no other historian can find them. And what happens is Christians here, they think that, well, it's one historian talking and they're just disagreeing, but a lot of his stuff is not sourced.
No, not even a little.
And that's who even Rush Limbaugh quoted him as quoting. Let me read the quote here. Now, before I say that, the verse 21, how he uses this to justify that, and I wanted to thank the Skeptics Annotated Bible for pointing this out, to justify that he uses this verse to say that this is how our democratic system of government first came about in this verse right here. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place them such over them to be rulers of thousands and rulers of hundreds and rulers of 50s and rulers of 10s. So he's saying this somehow was like where the founding fathers came up with democracy, because we have representative democracy, right?
Yeah.
And he's saying come up with all these righteous men.
Stolen from the 5 nations previously known as the Iroquois.
Yeah.
But yes, actual American democracy was stolen from the indigenous peoples. Reality, it obviously has nothing to do with what this man says, because it's very obvious to anyone who reads this that what you're setting up here is a system of lower civics court, because one guy cannot personally mediate every dispute over a fucking goat.
Yeah.
For 3 million people.
And
you're gonna lose your brains.
And it's represented as God instituting this representative form of government, when actually it's Jethro talking here, not God.
It's Moses' father-in-law giving him good advice to designate his job instead of micromanaging everything himself, because, you're just one person and that's not healthy.
Right.
Bible invented bureaucracy.
Oh, yeah. And there were other cultures with judges as well, probably older than this one.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of older than this one.
Wait. I have one more thing.
What were you about to say about me?
I have one more thing. I'm not finished.
Sure.
Okay. All right. In 1995, the historian Robert Alley attempted to. I'm taking this from the Texas Monthly. It's a publication in Texas. The historian Robert Alley attempted to trace the provenance of a quote that Rush Limbaugh had mistakenly attributed to James Madison. They love when we go to these hearings to misquote James Madison, and it's David Barton's books that are some of them honestly might think they have genuine quotes and they're counterfeit, in which Madison purportedly called the 10 Commandments the foundation of American civilization. All roads led to David Barton, whose The Myth of Separation attributed the following quote to Madison. Here's the quote. "We have staked the whole future of American civilization, not upon the power of government, far from it. We have staked the future of all of our political institutions upon the capacity of mankind for self-government, upon the capacity of each of all of us to govern ourselves, to control ourselves, to sustain ourselves according to the 10 Commandments of God." Of course, nobody can find the source for this claim.
This is utter nonsense. I mean, of all the ridiculous.
It's completely fake.
Your
it's completely
country
fake, unlike
is lunatics. Oh my God.
Yeah. This is a fake quote, unlike that famous one by FDR, which says something like, "Don't believe everything you hear on the you read on the internet."
No, that was Abraham Lincoln.
No, it was Albert Einstein. No, Albert
Look at me
Einstein
spreading
Washington.
misinformation.
don't believe everything on the internet just because a smart person's name is attached to it. Yeah, that was
trying to shorten it.
Okay, I'm going to read a couple comments.
And it contradicts everything else Madison ever said about the separation of church and state. And like, it's misleading to Christians who think they've got. The funny thing is, it reminds me of his group Wall Builders reminds me of the Discovery Institute. Only the Discovery Institute hates David Barton. He like not hates, but J.W. Richards, senior fellow at the Christian Conservative Discovery Institute, said in 2012 that Barton's books and videos are full of embarrassing factual errors, suspiciously selective quotes, and highly misleading claims.
So you are telling me that this historian is too dishonest for the Discovery Institute.
And we say historian with air quotes, though, because guess where he got his bachelor's in history?
The same trailer that
Patriot University
is fake.
Close. Dang it! I lost my train of thought. But I think it's Liberty University.
Oh.
I'd have to go back and double check. I lost my.
Oh, I thought it would be the same trailer that Kent Hovind got his.
Oral Roberts University.
Oral Roberts.
There you go.
Oh yeah, the guy who said that if his. Yeah, prophesied. Wasn't he the one who insisted that God would kill him if his people didn't buy him a plane?
He's the one who said a 900-foot Jesus would kill. God would kill him, right?
Oh,
yep.
Maybe both.
Which means at 900 feet that's pretty tall. But if Godzilla teamed up with Cthulhu, they could still take it.
I hope P-Town's listening because I'm doing this for your benefit too, P-Town.
Tom, you messed the
Hello, everyone.
Hello, P-Town.
Hey, P-Town.
I'm having tech issues.
Okay.
We noticed you seem to be disappearing from the story almost as often as Zipporah.
Tomer's
Tomer's having some issues.
And all I heard was petard.
Oh, it wasn't in reference.
No, that's a flat earther.
We didn't say that, but that does sound very funny. But no, we were talking about flat earthers.
And we were talking about a different pronunciation of petard or whatever the hell that
petard,
word is.
I think.
Petard, the hoist on your own petard.
All right. Well, while Tomer's figuring out his thing, I'm going to read up some comments. So Derek Cruz offers $5 and says, "Love this show. Keep up the good content, my friends." Thank you very much. Then Kent McLeod Jr. says, "I've heard this idea, but is there any truth about the Jews having idolized or rather deified those who treated them fairly and freed them from captivity? Example, Cyrus the Great."
I think deified is too much of a word. Cyrus was a lot of the prophecies that were later attributed to Jesus as the Christ include references that were originally intended to refer to Cyrus. But again, that wasn't deification because Jews aren't Christians. They don't think the Messiah or the Christ is God. They think the Messiah or the Christ is someone ordained by God to help them and serve their interests in a very dramatic way. Cyrus let them go back to their homeland, write their law, yada, 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 build the temple, huge issue building the temple, very big. That would, the modern equivalent, I think, it's something of perhaps a step above righteous among the nations. I know that the Jewish state declare Gentiles who have done really tremendous things, like who saved a ton of people during the Holocaust. They will be named righteous among the nations.
Yeah, I think with Cyrus, it's even traditional that he converted and was like the son of Esther, I guess not converted. He was the son of Esther, and he was actually Jewish, and so it's more like they turned them into legendary figures. Alexander the Great, for example, there's a story about Alexander the Great that he met the high priest and they spoke or whatever, and that's why Jews to this day you have Alexander or sender, it's like a Jewish traditional name from that time.
Wow. Okay, so speaking of Alexander, we have Sean Alexander offering $20, and the comment pertains to Albert Einstein, and I wanted to read this when you guys brought up Einstein a moment ago. It says, Sean Alexander says, for $20, and thank you very much for that. It says, I recently found out that Albert Einstein was a real person. All this time, I thought he was a theoretical physicist.
By the way,
Oh, I am hitting you with my Bible in spirit.
can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Good. Yeah, my internet suddenly fell off. Optic fiber from my ass. So I wanted to say that there is a biography by Einstein. A biography by Walter Isaacson.
Oh, you're going a bit robotic.
I think your microphone may be a bit.
I think Tomer now really turned into an AI.
Just a second.
Have you melded with the universal consciousness?
Yeah. While Tomer sorts that out, we got another comment from Trevor and Wright. Says, what is it about believing in Moses, God, that actually demonstrate anything about being morally good? Whenever someone mentions the 10 Commandments, they fail to demonstrate how it's moral. I know, right?
I've noticed that they really harp on the like incredibly fucking obvious shit that every civilization that has anything more than a mud hut has come up with. Something like, don't murder or steal. They completely ignore the person. We're going to have to devote an entire episode to just ripping the 10 Commandments a new asshole, because
it's like, oh yeah, if you put a sign on the wall and like 5 steps down the list it says don't murder, that's going to reduce school shootings somehow.
Yeah.
Do I sound
well?
good?
We'll just have to. Yeah. You sound okay now, but we're going to have to wait until the next chapter, the very next chapter, to chew into the 10 Commandments, and I'm
Let me at him.
So Tom, let's start on this. Let's finish this chapter then.
Yeah. I before that, I wanted to say there is a biography by Walter Isaacson about Albert Einstein that I absolutely recommend that you read if you're interested about the man Einstein. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay.
Good. Now back to the chapter. About the whole part from 13. So Sana here comments, 2 interesting parallels to these narratives in Exodus and Deuteronomy may be cited. The first comes from Egypt, from the days of Pharaoh Horemheb.
Yeah,
what happened?
You're still being robotic.
Fuck this. This optic fiber.
You turned off the AI sound when you said that.
What? Jesus fuck.
Okay,
yeah, you were perfectly clear when you said "fuck this."
Okay. I don't know these. I don't know what's happening to my internet right now. It's bizarre.
Well,
of all the things you could have said with a robotic voice, it would have been funnier if "fuck this." It would have been.
Okay, so I have my phone here in case
yeah, you sound good now.
So. Okay, good.
I don't know. You'd certainly lose picture quality if you use your phone.
Oh no.
Oh, that's right.
You won't be able to understand that equation.
There won't be an equation because I didn't really do anything there.
Yeah, you haven't uploaded.
Okay, let's hope that. Okay, let's hope that everything is fine. Okay, the first parallel comes from Egypt, from the days of Pharaoh Horemheb, circa 1333 to 1306 BCE. This pharaoh, who lived not too long before the Exodus, issued a decree for the reformation of the Egyptian judiciary. He sought out, quote, persons of integrity, good in character, and placed them in the towns of Egypt. He charged them as follows: do not enter into close relations with other people. Do not accept a gift from another. The other parallel comes from 2 Chronicles 19, verses 5 to 8, where we are told that King Jehoshaphat, circa 1873 to 1849 BC, appointed judges in all the fortified towns of Judah, in each town, and charged them as follows: consider what you are doing, for you judge not on behalf of men, but on behalf of the Lord, and he is with you when you pass judgment. Now let the dread of the Lord be upon you. Act with care, for there is no injustice of favoritism or rivalry with the Lord of God.
There are moments, Tomer, where what you just said could only be understood by R2D2.
Okay, let me try to move to the phone. And see if I'm-
Good idea.
Okay, you do that, Tomer. We're going to continue reading, but I really do like the part that I understood of that quote, and it clearly demonstrates that, as we stated, this is not some magical invocation of God. This is good advice that, when you have to rule a lot of people, you try and appoint fair judges for the lower courts. And may I just say, I think this is why autistic people should be the only one allowed to be judges, because not so susceptible to bribery.
Okay, so
Or
while
lying.
Tomer sorts out his internet connection, let me just translate what he just said.
That's a good R2D2 whistle.
Everybody clap if you believe in Tomer. So it's
Yeah, you come back.
Hey.
Don't we have a Dark Lord to
You
pray
can do it.
to?
Oh, that's true.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Tomer,
Oh, but it's
Tomer
worse.
2.0 is here.
Yeah, because it's on my phone.
Oh.
Okay, it's
Oh.
not so bad.
It's
Okay, well-
I know it's bad because the internet sucks.
The sound quality
Okay.
isn't
It sure
as
isn't.
good, but at least you don't have the robotic sounding for now.
Okay, good.
So I had a question. Who's the Lord in the second quote that you said? Who's the
Guess
the
who?
Lord? I don't know. I didn't actually catch the name
The,
of the king.
the Yahweh, God of Israel. That's the Lord.
Hey, the
Oh.
Code of Hammurabi, the most ancient actually written.
Do you
code
want me
in
to
the-
read the
No.
second as well? Because
No, just what was the name? I didn't hear the name of the king.
Jehoshaphat, the king.
Oh, okay, so
Jehoshaphat,
it's-
okay.
It
We
was like king.
couldn't.
Okay.
We
Oh,
couldn't hear
Tomer,
the name
can
of
you-
the king. so
Can
we
you
weren't
keep away
certain.
from your phone just a little bit more, because your sound is extremely
yeah.
loud and it's clipping.
Sorry. Jesus Christ. I can't believe this happened to me. I really can't believe it.
They're
Tomer,
clapping
Tomer,
for
you
you
really
can
in the
amusing to-
comments.
you
Tomer.
can call
They're
him, but he's
clapping for
probably
really
not going to help.
amusing.
This is one of my worst nightmares.
It's really amusing to me to hear a frustrated Israeli say Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Well,
I
he-
got that long time ago.
blasphemy.
We're the only ones who are allowed to take that name in vain.
Hey,
Yeah.
I am a traumatized ex-evangelical. I can say
I know atheists.
Oh, and
Jesus
she's frozen.
motherfucking Christ as much as I goddamn want to.
Wow.
Oh
No,
no.
can you hear me?
We need
Okay.
to
We can
need to
hear you.
renew our
Now.
vows to Satan.
Arn, I think we need P-Town to
Yes.
say a prayer, because all of this is getting weird. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, first of all, Tomar goes completely AI after he was being accused of being AI. Now he is AI. And Lilith
Oh,
said,
no.
Lilith is trying to say she can do whatever she wants, but except she only got halfway through the sentence.
Am I
May the
under
Wi-Fi on
now?
high bless us.
I'll try in 10 more minutes to see if I can, if my usual
Well,
set is.
I actually do have a pretty interesting commentary about this chapter.
Ooh.
So
Yes.
so in general, this chapter is, Jethro comes and visits, and then he witnesses Moses teaching the law to the people, but they haven't received the law yet. So the question arises: is this chapter supposed to be chronologically before or after the giving of the law at Mount Sinai? And the different commentators do actually talk about this. I think Rashi is of the opinion that the Bible is not chronologically accurate.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not in chronological order.
Yeah, and so
It was written by
he
Quentin
tries-
Tarantino.
So he says that this happened after,
Bloody
and
hell.
when the verse says it came about on the next day, it doesn't necessarily mean the day after they ate, but it could be the day after the Torah was given. And he says it's the day after Yom Kippur. So I don't know if Yom Kippur is the traditional date
Even
for
if
when
you
the
had
Torah
not
was given.
received the law,
Sounds
you
wrong
would
to me,
still
but-
have to keep order amongst all these people from a purely practical point of view. And Moses has clearly set himself up as the leader who is
Right. Oh, okay. So he
the
was
special.
right, because if they came out in the first month, and then he was up there for 40 days and 40 nights, and they only arrived in the third one. Okay, so it would have been about, by the time of the new year, but we celebrate the giving when they get to Sinai, I think, which is like the sixth day of the third month, something like that. So so after the 40 days, 40 nights, he comes back down. So this would have been, according to Rashi, this is like the day after that.
Okay, so this, we could put it
the day after his descent from the mountain, which took place on Yom Kippur.
Peter, I'm going to try to
say
again some results again, so be prepared.
Be prepared.
Did you say you're getting some burritos?
I would love to.
You hear what you want to hear.
I think we forgot to renew our allegiance to Satan, and that's why our internet is so crappy today.
Hail Satan.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope that this will be fine. And if
It is
not,
better.
good. I don't know why my internet started to be funky. No, don't tell me.
No, it's only for a second.
Oh shit.
Let's see.
We can hear you.
I think you should just
Okay.
power through it.
Okay. Let me. Do you want me to finish my commentary real quick, or?
Yeah, well, you
Yes.
got it.
Okay.
Yeah, try that.
Okay. Verse 21, and warn me if there's problems. Verse 21. Select in Hebrew Bible reads techeze, while the stem chet zayin hey could be used to denote seek and choose, like Nachmanides, Kasuto, and Chacham suggested. The stem could also denote prophecy. And so the Mechiltat Rabbi Ishmael and Rashi rendered the verse, "You shall seek through the Holy Spirit that is upon you."
Yes, we don't have the and thummim yet to either is magically select the people that God has designated to be honest enough to be judges, or, magically translate hats, seeing stones, books.
Oh, I
stuff.
can't wait till we get to the Urim and Thummim.
Okay, and finally, this is about the chapter in whole. So Kasuto points out that this chapter has two literary features. The first is parallelism, as seen in verses 1 and 15. The stem shin lamet chet in verses 2 and 27, hearing in verses 1 and 24, etc. The second is numerical schematism, which revolves around the number 10. The verbs asa, to do, and bo, to come, appear 10 times. Jethro's name appears 7 times, and his designation, Moses' father-in-law, appears 13 times, a total number of 20 references. Kasuto also writes, the word davar, word, thing, or matter, occurs again and again in different meanings, particularly in the dialogue between Moses and Jethro, and finally, even in the narrative. In all, it is found 10 times in the singular and once in the plural. Possibly, this decade is to be regarded as a preliminary allusion to the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments, or in Hebrew, Aseret HaDvarim, which is to form the main theme of the next section.
Okay. Did you
Hold on
finish?
back. Hold
Yes,
on
I
back.
did.
Yay, hold on back on the next section, huh? The Ten Commandments.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
in fairness,
It
we
is
do
hiding.
have one chapter about the arriving at Mount Sinai and how it's
Yes.
a big deal. And
Yes.
And then the SmackDown.
Yep. So we're going to do 19. If y'all are up for it, we're going to do 19.
Yes.
And we're going
I'm
to read some comments before we get to that. The Explorer Channel UK says there is so many denominations in Christianity as they choose different verses to back up different doctrines and share some exclusive views. Atheists just read all of it and it don't work. Did that make sense to anyone here?
It's broken.
Yeah.
You're saying when you read the Bible, there's so many different ways you could read it that you end up with so many different ways of keeping a religion. But from an atheist perspective, you see all these different contradictions, and you see them
And
as
you just go,
contradictions, not as alternatives.
All
Okay.
lies.
the quote I
Listen.
used for one person was, I think at the conference I was speaking to someone who had sort of interreligious upbringing. And I said, they say you can spend your whole life studying one religion, study 2 and you'll be done in half an hour. Basically, it's one of those things. If you have to believe it's true, then you have to find a way to make these things work. And then you have these long traditions and histories of theological thought. I don't know, however, how prone your religion, well, Judaism in general, is to this, but I know among Christians, there's a great deal of fanaticism for mutual excommunication. They aren't the true Christians because they're Catholics, and where the Protestants goes to, they aren't the true Christians because they believe that the Holy Spirit comes at the moment of baptism, and we believe that the baptism of the Holy Spirit is an independent thing, and comes with the gift of receiving of tongues, which just means speaking Babel in a state of hyperactive state. But that's not important. The point is, they are not the true Christians, and it's built into Christianity. It is from the, what's the verse? I will say to them, I never knew you, away from me, evildoers. After they say, have we not prophesied in your name, and in your name performed many miracles? I will say, away. So I don't know, how prone is Judaism to that kind of mutual excommunication, that all the other groups that don't think the same way as you are not true?
In general, Judaism doesn't really have it, but when you get down to the,
I think they do, like an internal conflicts, right? Or,
well, I mean, on a general level, I'm saying like Orthodoxy will say that non-Orthodoxy isn't true Torah Judaism because it doesn't keep the law.
But they still bicker at each other.
Sorry?
They still bicker at each other. They still like.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it's not as like they don't consider them not real. Real Jews. But if you get down to like the more like cultic sects, they might see anyone who isn't in their specific cult or sect as being not real Jews, or at least not true Jews. Yeah,
but certainly
they wouldn't say that they're not actually Jewish.
Certain evangelical Christians are genuinely expecting that Jesus is going to come, and there's going to be a rapture and a great magical, meeting in the sky where we're all standing around forever, because that's going to take forever. And God is going to separate to the left and right, and that a bunch of people who follow Jesus according to a different ideological sect than them will be told, I never knew you, away from me, evildoers, and sent to hell with the rest of us. And who that group contains is more based, at least in some groups that I've heard from and was indoctrinated by, contains people more based on differences of ideology as opposed to what would have made a lot more sense based on behavior, genocidal maniac.
All right, I've got a couple more comments to read before we jump into the next chapter. We have Arthur Hubert says, not a very interesting question, but what is the formula of Tomer's picture? Because the infinite summation doesn't seem to converge, and it is bugging me.
Try to figure it out.
That's the answer you're going to give?
Yes.
You have an awkwardly
most of the people in the audience are not mathematicians, and they also would find it interesting.
Yes, that's the point.
That's a jerk answer.
I know.
Then give a hint. Give a hint that
you're negating the next comment I'm about to read.
It's kind of about me.
Is it your name? Is it your name?
Kind of, yes.
Yay!
It's kind of, but it's depending. Is it Tomer or is it Tomer?
I see.
Or is it?
I see.
Yeah, but
now.
Don't.
Mass.
Sorry about that.
The summation.
Don't, please don't.
Okay,
I don't want people like to just spam me.
It literally says his
or
name.
Yeah,
Right.
you can figure it out, but please don't send messages.
Okay, gotcha.
Pretty
All right,
easy.
so Levinche Gonche says, Tomer, we love you. You're loved. Sometimes it may be hard to hear you, but that doesn't change the former.
I wish that was
Aww.
true. Just kidding. Thank
Then
you.
Mr. Crinan says, does anyone on the panel know if Israel has recognized the Samaritans from Palestine religious status?
I think they do. I'm not really sure about the Samaritans. There are Samaritan groups inside of Israel as well, Holon, most predominantly. But I think they do as well. I know that Religion for Breakfast made a video about the Samaritans, and so if you want, you can check his video out.
That's a
Okay.
good question. I don't know if, because I think in Israel, like to be a recognized religion where you can like, what's the word? There's a few things in the law that is like the law doesn't. It's not under the law. It's done by religious law, like marriage and stuff. There's no secular marriage. There's only religious marriage. So if you're a recognized religion, you can perform marriage and be recognized by the state. And I think only Islam, Christianity, and Judaism have that status. I don't know if.
Okay. So
If
we have
Samaritans
Samaritans. We have Samaritans
Well, I guess.
within Israel and also without
Yeah,
Israel. So
yeah,
in
yeah.
which place do we find the good one?
Oh no! Don't start, please.
The main Samaritan place of residence is on Mount Gerizim, which is their holy
Yeah,
mountain.
that's where they consider Mount Moriah to be.
Yeah, I can't remember what the name of the town is. Is it Samaria?
Ah, Mount Moriah, where the dwarves were too greedy. And dug deep.
Yeah, but they were on the other mountain.
You awakened the Balrog.
They're
All
on
right, so-
Caradras.
Kent McLeod says, a compliment for Lilith. I hold deep gratitude for her in-depth, clear explanations for ancient history and religions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind. I try and walk the
Let's do
line
it.
between trying to translate it because I know I spent so many years kind of in this confused space where my mind was trying to work its way out of its confines. And so I try and build the bridge back as much as I can.
Then Trevorn Wright says, why was it necessary for Christianity to create so many denominations, only to create various different dogmas and doctrine that conflict with each other? And how do they cope? LOL.
Do you think a major part of religion
I
is
don't get
just
the
an
question.
addiction to being right?
I think you can apply this to any religion because every religion has its own sects.
Yep,
Mm.
I would agree. All right, so we're on to Exodus 19.
Before we go there, I want to put too fine a point on chapter 18 being where we're having a problem in the United States distinguishing history from fiction, and it'll become more so with the Ten Commandments, because people say these things with authority, and y'all were talking about why there's so many different sects and why is there no true Christian and stuff like that, because like it's like a grapevine, you know, or like these alternate realities start springing up, these alternate timelines. So America's living in a strange timeline right now where lots of people probably honestly believe that our government was founded on the Ten Commandments because of people repeating fake information and false information like this.
This is why I respect science, because the truth is the ultimate authority. The facts are the ultimate authority. I am holding a bottle. We can test this. You know,
but you know, Christians, they look at it like, well, that's your opinion, man. You know.
Well, no, that's a get out of jail free card, because as I've brought up the concept of Christian thinking, so often is based in the idea of authority, the idea that you must submit to an authority, not just in the terms of, you know, you must follow the law and not run people down with your car, but like in your own mind, that you must submit to the authority. And that is truth, whatever is from the received authority. And I mean, that's all the way to 2 + 2 is 5.
And that's why historians are important. History matters. Science matters. What actually happened in the Old Testament matters. And like Lawrence isn't here, but he'll be like, well, you know, Christians, you know, they just looked at it this way or whatever. But it causes real world damage and it changes reality.
It does. It does. And the more I learned even of Christian history and the history of Christian thought and reading, you know, way back, I haven't actually read Anselm, but, you know, all the way back in Augustine and Thomas Aquinas and looking at the different modes of thought, it really challenged my initial ideas of little evangelical box of what the good Christianity is. And expanded my mind from there, and that gave me permission to ultimately question more. But yeah, it's again, you have these groups that just want control and are going to narrow the lens.
But the truth matters.
Yes, It does.
It does matter, and the truth is, Lilith, or sorry, Landra, we were founded by people that believed in God. They were,
No.
You know that
yes,
the
they
deists were
believed in God.
condemned by
They were
every
creationists.
pastor.
We were
It is-
founded by people who were largely deist, who could not be intellectually satisfied atheists only because they lived before Darwin explained the biggest mystery that they had. And so they believed that there was a God who sort of set things into motion and then removed himself from the universe.
Some of them.
So that,
Some
so
of
that
them
he-
lean that
so
way
that he
because
didn't-
they were.
all the ones that did the heavy lift.
and what they knew, the founders knew, was that every time that any country is established, they would always put the in the Constitution, they would always dedicate it to God, and the result was always a violation of human rights. They saw what was going on in our own country, where Puritans came over here escaping religious persecution, only to then practice it upon themselves, so that the Puritans and the Quakers were at war with each other, and in Salem they were burning each other at the stake, or killing each other because of slight religious differences. And they were pulling out like supernatural explanations, and so they wanted a secular government where supernatural explanations would not even be considered.
Well, good for you,
Well-
P-Town, that you acknowledge that some of them did not believe in a corporeal God. They believed in deism. But do you believe that our country was founded on a specifically Christian or even Hebrew God?
I think that at the time we were, we were at war with England. So we're at war with the king. We're at war with the Church of England. I think that a lot of the people at that time, were very smart. They were anti-religious in a way. For me to know whether or not I could say obviously Thomas Paine, for example, who wrote The Age
Exactly.
of Reason. I think that if I sat down with Thomas Paine now, he would have
He
a
would be an
different viewpoint,
atheist.
knowing I would disagree. See, that's where your presumptions are at play.
No,
I
if
think
you're
he would be in our court. You would think that he was going in your court. To assume that he would be an atheist,
No.
I do think that he probably
His
would have become an
abhorrence.
atheist after being introduced to Darwin.
His
Sure, in
abhorrence
all of
of
that era,
Christianity
was
his abhorrence of Christianity was well documented, and Darwin was not in error. Even most Christians have recognized this.
See, she's
Throughout
not presuming. She's basing it on what she knows about Thomas Paine.
about what he actually wrote.
I've read The Age of Reason. I've read this book twice.
Good.
Also,
Now,
statistically, if we're going to look at a time when almost everybody was religious, the few people that are brave enough or intellectually honest enough to be deist or skeptic in any way, the likelihood is that in our day and age, those people would have been atheists. Einstein, Newton.
They were as far from
It is
orthodox as they
Bacon
could be,
even.
consistent with the
Sure,
time.
I agree with you, and in a lot of ways, so am I. Just because I believe in this book doesn't mean that I'm not religious in the same sense. Most people, sorry, my kids are just
P-Town,
freaked out on me. But look at
I'm
this.
really curious.
Let me-
So
give me-
there, hold on. There is a predominantly
never get this
American
chapter.
American denomination, which is Mormonism. If that had been the state religion, would you have converted to the LDS?
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed
That's not my question.
by their creator with certain.
Yeah,
I'm not going to answer your question.
That's
Yeah,
not my
deist
question.
creator,
With certain-
But you didn't
with
answer my
certain
question.
unalienable rights.
You hate
Is it a
answering
specific
questions
Hebrew?
that are clear, Peter?
Yeah.
Would I be Mormon if it was the state religion?
Yes.
And then I stopped listening. No, of course, that's silly.
Well, again, if you're talking about the founding fathers, one of the things, whatever they would have believed now with greater information, and I maintain almost all of them would have been atheists. But that being said, whatever it is,
They were all
one thing
creationists.
no, dear.
They
The
believed
one
in a
thing
God.
they were
and a
all,
creator.
they used common language at the time. That's not the point. The one thing they were all very, very, very clear on is that any religion in political authority is a terrible thing. that once religious power was married to political power, hell on earth is inevitably the result.
Okay,
They
so
knew this.
P-Town, while they did have a belief that that just they didn't have any other explanation, so they had to assume that there must have been a magical creator. They were not creationists, because creationism is a denial of science, specifically methodological naturalism and evolution. And
That's you
when we're
changing
talking about
the definition of a word, though, Aaron. And
No,
that's where I
that's
understand.
the way
yeah,
it's
because you
being
said they were
said.
creationists, and they are not science denialists, so they would
Right,
not be
you and I have different
creationists.
definitions of creationists, and
Okay,
that's
well, correct
where I
yours.
like.
A
You want me to
creationist
change
believes
mine?
that
Mine's been
Genesis
around a lot long. The idea
no,
of
a creationist
atheism.
believes that Genesis is a true and accurate account of the creation of the world, at least in the context of Christianity. We can deal with Hindu and Muslim creationists separately. But whether they are old earth or young earth creationists, what they believe is that Genesis is actually a scientific account. I defy you to find any record that any of the founders of your country believed anything so nonsensical.
Yeah. So on the quote from Thomas Paine, here's my favorite, and this tells me that he would have been an atheist. The Persian shows the Zenda Avesta of Zoroaster, the lawgiver of Persia, and he calls it the divine law. The Brahmin shows the Shastra, revealed, he says, by God to Brahma and given to him out of a cloud. The Jew shows what he calls the law of Moses, given, he says, by God on the Mount Sinai. The Christian shows a collection of books and epistles written by nobody knows who and called the New Testament. And the Mahometan shows the Quran, given, he says, by God to Muhammad. Each of these calls itself revealed religion and the only true word of God. And the followers each profess to believe from the habit of education, and each believes the others are imposed upon. So he's showing that all religions are just lying to each other and to themselves.
They, as Ingersoll said, they all tell the truth about each other. Because if two men tell you, one says, the other day I saw a body rise from the graveyard and come back to life and full flesh and vigor and walked around. And another man says, well, then I actually saw the same thing only 3 nights later in a different graveyard. A man came to life and the flesh returned to his bones and he was all well. And the first man calls him a liar. And the second man says, well, you're another. Why do they do that? Because both lied. They knew they lied. They knew the other lied. If it had actually happened, they would consider the second account as a confirmation of their own. So when Moses goes up the mountain and says, I saw God and he gave me these commandments, and a man says, Krishna says, I saw the great divine Brahman on a mountain and he gave me these precepts, and each says you are a liar, what does that tell you? Each tell the truth about the other.
Yep. So then next comment is from Vesta Freya, and she said, or they say, my husband, when dealing with fundies, he will weaponize the Bible and point out that a modern Samaritan would be a transsexual atheist.
I doubt it, because we have
I
modern
might be having
Samaritans.
internet issues, just so everyone knows.
Okay, fair enough. I think actually what he's referring to is the tale of the Good Samaritan in the New Testament.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah,
tale
and I
of
do
the
want to
Good
get through this
Samaritan in the New
chapter.
Testament.
So
Yes, I do,
Yes.
because I have like
Yeah,
three and a
let's ignore
half pages of commentary on this.
how far should I read?
Should I?
I get.
Let me read this one. How far should I go?
Oh, go ahead.
Wait,
I'm not-
Leander wanted
Summer.
to say something, or
Yeah. Well, again, like this is what I mean when we're listening to
Is
P-Town
it just me, or is it everyone else? Yeah.
having internet issues. Yes.
Everyone else? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
cosmic vibrations. I don't know.
I know. When
Solar
you're
flares.
listening to P-Town,
Yeah, solar flares.
you're convinced these stories have convinced so many people of something that didn't happen, that it actually happened, and not just that it actually happened, that we should live our lives by it. So this is why this is important to understand it in its context. And P-Town, you didn't answer the question. Do you believe America was founded by the specifically Hebrew God or the Christian God? Either one, or both. Do you believe that?
I finally think I got internet connection back, but I only caught the
Do you
late part
believe?
of your question.
Do you believe America was founded by a specifically Hebrew God, or Christian or Hebrew or both?
God,
It depends on who you're talking about. Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Paine, they were probably pretty far, I guess you would say, left in terms of their beliefs.
Like deists,
I
right?
believe
Left is
they
different.
they were what I would call, on creationists, because they believed in a creator. That was something they clearly talked about continually.
But this isn't answering the question. So is
But
your
no, I don't.
Yeah. You don't believe it was?
just
You
wanted to
don't
say that
believe?
Our country was founded on the freedom of religion.
Yes, we agree with you there, right? Everybody
have-
has the right to practice their own religion in the way they choose in their own homes. But it's
no religion.
Yeah, including none. And look at the founding document. It separation of church and state, though. Our government isn't supposed to be religious.
Even if all the founders were Mormons, the America is a secular state in its constitution. Doesn't make a difference who the founders.
Yeah,
actually
as Thomas
believe
Jefferson said,
themselves.
it does me no injury for my neighbor to say there are 20 gods or no God. It neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg.
All right, Tomo,
up to
how
13,
far should he read?
please.
13.
To 13? All right.
13.
On the first day of the 3rd month after the Israelites left Egypt, on that very day they came to the desert of Sinai. After they set out from Rephidim, they entered the desert of Sinai, and Israel camped there in the desert in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." Is that where Tolkien got that? Never mind.
Well,
And-
I mean, it's not a good bit
Going.
and eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you obey me and fully and keep my covenant, and then out of the nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites. So Moses went back and summoned the elders of the people and set before them all the words of the Lord and commanded him to speak. The people all responded together, "We will do everything the Lord has said." So Moses brought their answer back up to the Lord, who, for whatever reason, was having problems with his Wi-Fi and couldn't telepathically understand all of this.
Glitch.
The Lord, I may have embellished some of that. The Lord said to Moses, I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, so that the people will hear me speaking with you and will always put their trust in you." Then Moses told the Lord what the people had said. Now, how far did you want me to read, Tomer?
13.
13, gotcha. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and have them wash their clothes and be ready by the 3rd day, because on that day the Lord will come down on the Mount Sinai in sight of all of the people. Put limits for the people around the mountain and tell them, be careful that you do not approach the mountain or touch the foot of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. They are to be stoned or shot with arrows. Not a hand is to be laid on them. No person or animal shall be permitted to live. Only when the ram's horn sounds a long blast may they approach the mountain.
Okay. I want to start with verse 5, not 5, 4 here. I carried you on eagle's wings. Rashi comments that this refers to the day when God quickly gathered all of Israel to Ramesses, and thus everyone left Egypt together, as an eagle that carries his fledglings on his wings, so that arrows will hit him and not them. So is the angel of the Lord, who stood between Israel and the Egyptians to absorb the stones and catapults of Egypt. Rashbam comments that God moved Israel across the sea like eagles that fly above the seas. According to Professor Yoram Yom Tov, an emeritus professor at the Department of Zoology, Tel Aviv University, some fowls can carry fledglings that fell from their nests. The eagle's large dimensions probably led the writer of the verse to hypothesize that it can lift its fledglings and carry them for far distances as well.
I mean, it's a pretty image. I don't think it's backed by ornithology, but it's a pretty image.
Yeah, and also
it's,
the name of the operation to bring the Yemenite Jews to Israel is also called on the wings of eagles. On the eagle.
Yeah, that's
eagle's wings,
messianic.
definitely.
That's probably messianic imagery because it's also.
Yeah,
said,
interestingly,
like,
I listened
back
to an
in
interview,
swings.
a recorded interview with J.R.R. Tolkien, and he was describing how he used the eagles to get the heroes out of this situation or that situation at two different times in the story. And some of his critics happened across him in a pub and challenged him. They said, "Why didn't you just use the eagles the whole time? It would have just ended the story right away. It would have solved all these problems." And he said, "Well, here's the thing about that. Fuck you."
Yeah. Also, yeah, they probably would have just been like shot out.
Well, there's also the bit about how their whole mission depended on stealth and deception. But it's. I mean, fair enough. It's you don't have much of a story that way, presuming there's no trouble. Although you'd need a hell of a lot of archers.
When I learnt this about the eagle's wings thing, I don't know. I think Rashi says it himself. More or less, it's like it's believed that, or like they taught it as fact, I guess, that eagles, because they're like they fly highest and they don't have any fears of a predator from above. They carry their young on their wings, and other birds, since they're afraid of eagles or vultures or whatever coming out the sky above them, they carry their children underneath them. But yeah, I don't think that is a real fact.
No, I don't think it's a real fact either.
It is not.
It's a cute image. But yeah, it clearly.
Yeah. And also, eagles wouldn't have developed a tactic of protecting their young above them from arrows. With that it would have taken, if it was evolutionary, it would have taken a lot longer, I imagine.
We haven't been
Unless
shooting at them
I
for
don't
that
think
long.
eagles are cultural, like.
And eagles are a
birds.
very majestic bird, and everyone always, there's always a nod to that.
Verse 5, my treasured possession. In Hebrew, segula. Avishur writes here, and Ugaritic text, RS 18.038, tells of a treaty between Shupiluliuma II, king of the Hittites, and Amurapi, an Ugaritic king. In it, the word segelet is parallel to Abad. Because Ugarit was a wealthy kingdom and an international trade center, its king had a possession of a respectable vassal. It is to be assumed, therefore, that the word segula in the Bible was used as a nickname by God to Israel, his people, and vassal. The term segula in Hebrew and...
Hold on, what was the name that you just read a moment ago?
Segelet?
Yeah. Was it just Segelet?
Segelet, right?
And Amurabi, which is Hammurabi, right?
No, Amurapi. Not
that's
a Ugaritic king. It's not Babylonian.
Okay, Amurapi.
Okay, I just wanted to get the spelling, because that's going to be my DJ name.
Okay, let me
should
continue.
Be a rap name, Amurapi.
I'll continue. The term I stop here. The term segula in Hebrew and Ugaritic therefore belongs to the area of a contract and a treaty. In a seal of the king of Alalach from the 15th century BCE, there are three adjacent terms: the servant of Hadad, the beloved of Hadad, and the sikiltum of Hadad. This testifies to the use of the word segula to mean honor and favorite. In conclusion, God's relation to his people is like that of a god and his king, and like that of a great king to his favorite vassal.
I mean, that is the type of relationship they're trying to set up. Of subservience and obedience to a king, not like a modern king, but an ancient tyrannical warlord king who could cut off your head for any reason whatsoever. So don't annoy him.
The father-son imagery is probably might be later.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
a little later when people became more civilized and God was dragged
Volcano,
kicking and
volcano.
screaming into it too. I do
My
want to
father, my
establish,
king.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, and also you try and inspire affection because it lasts longer than fear. Eventually, fear will burn out, and you will feel that you have nothing left to fear because you've already lost what you care about most. And then you cut off the king's head, and there's a new king. But I do want to point out, particularly with regard to the thinking of Christians as I've experienced it, and the concept of authority, and the importance of establishing an authority. This specifically of I'm going to come down to you in a dense cloud so that people will hear me speaking to you. This is God making a big spectacle out of talking to Moses, which he apparently doesn't need to do because he's done it before under less dramatic circumstances, just so that they all see the magic and the smoke and oh, it's the presence of God. And then forever after, they're supposed to listen to Moses because he's demonstrably talked to God with the cloud and the drama and the lights and the killing anybody who touches the mountain, and all that stuff. It's theater that establishes the hierarchy.
And like for perspective, these are the people that watched. If the story is actually true, watch God split the Red Sea, and they will know that I am God because look what I did. And now, look, I'm going to do something again. I'm going to talk to them out of a cloud. And hey, don't touch that mountain or until the trumpet blasts. You know, have faith, have faith, have faith. They seem like a really skeptical people.
Well, the thing is, you know,
He's beating it out of them.
The story, what you're supposed to have is someone who saw this happen so that they can give a testament to it. What we really have are stories about the dramatic things that the people saw happen. And yet somehow that didn't prevent them from questioning Moses every 5 minutes. It's almost like in reality, it wasn't nearly as impressive as it was in the story version.
Or they were really stubborn. I don't know.
Verse 9 here about in a dense cloud. In Hebrew, it reads Be'av ha'anan or he'anan. Both words Av and Anan mean cloud. Chacham writes, the cloud is like a chariot in which God drives it, as it were, and descends from the heavens to the earth. See Isaiah 19:1, Psalms 104:3, and Ezekiel 1:4. Moreover, the cloud is like a screen that hides God from any observer. Compare 2 Samuel 22:12 and Psalms 18:12. The people will see the cloud and know that the glory of the Lord resides in it. Av and Anan are synonyms and sometimes appear parallel to each other. See Isaiah 44:22. These two words are conjoined for strengthening and emphasis.
Which is a common literary thing in Hebrew.
Yes.
Does that complete your commentary?
No. Yeah, no. You have. I have one page more. Sorry.
Okay,
I have for Mount Sinai, which is a page long, and I hope that I get it.
I just would to call out heads up to God for making people bathe and wash their clothes before he came down to visit them. Good call. I'm sure God appreciated it.
Everybody's got to be pretty and nice to when you go see God. You can't have
I wonder what he told them. He told them to put on his favorite perfume, the smell of burning flesh.
I was thinking you wanted people to wash their
blood.
sweaty clothes.
He loves blood. Just so you know.
Okay, I hope the section here is accurate because I have an opinion of a geographer that I'm not very so sure, but still. About Mount Sinai. Various locations were given for Mount Sinai. The usual identification of Mount Sinai is Jabal Musa, located at South Sinai. It was first given during the Byzantine
means
period.
Mountain of Moses.
Monks settled near the mountain at around 4th century CE, and Empress Helena, the mother of Constantine the Great, built a church there. Professor Menashe Hallel, a biblical geographer at Tel Aviv University, argues that argues against locating Mount Sinai at South Sinai, citing several problems. For example, the Israelites resided next to Mount Sinai for almost a year, and based on its geological structure and climate condition, there is not even a minimal amount of vegetation for the habitation of humans and animals. Also, Jabal Musa does not lie on the route to Midian or on the route between Kadesh Barnea and Canaan. He also dismissed North Sinai as a possible location. He hypothesized that Mount Sinai's location at Jebel Sin Bishar at west central Sinai, with reasons like its given name, meaning the reporting of the law or the laws of man, the writings of Josephus, and Pharaoh's request to not go far outside of Egypt. He concluded, however, that, quote, identifying Mount Sinai's exact location is, as it turns out, not possible. The Bible does not determine its precise location. The assumptions that Mount Sinai is located 3 days away from the land of Egypt hangs on a literary pattern of a geographical distance, compare Genesis 22:4, etc. Most of the stations of the Israelites in the Bible are unknown, and all identifications are hypothetical. It could be that Mount Sinai's location was forgotten during the biblical period, and its holiness was ascribed to a different mountain. According to Benjamin Mazal, Mount Sinai's location wasn't known even during the kingdom period. The mountain of God was identified at Horeb, which had a holy cave, according to 1 Kings 19, verses 8 to 13, at the southern mountain range of the Sinai Peninsula around Wadi Phalan.
How many trees have died so that people could argue about the actual location of a mythological mountain where God did not come down to tell priests to put a blue thread around their robe?
Yeah, I doubt the writers were trying to were like, you see this mountain that everyone knows about, Mount Sinai, everyone knows where it is. This is where it happened. It's more likely that they just said there was a mountain in the Sinai desert. We don't know which one it was. That's where it happened. I doubt they were trying to say this mountain, because if so, they probably would have had some sort of worship from ancient times.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
They certainly had a good bit of that.
It's not like a piece of known history that they're trying to add the story to. It seems more
well, and this is again, you're getting back to how far back are some of these sources. You know, when you're talking about the divided kingdoms, did they have a mythology going back to a specific mountain? There was definitely references to a mountain of God, but again, the law story, you know, in Deuteronomy, it's just the law. It isn't so much the story.
There's also multiple names, like Horeb and
Horeb, Sinai. Yeah, there's several, and again,
right, that's true.
Different traditions stitched together. So again, as I've pointed out so many times, there's no original version. It doesn't exist. It's not even possible for it to exist. What we're reading now has gone through so many cobblings together, you know, some just because, you know, they try to put things together after, you know, catastrophe, the burning of the temple and all that. But it's where any of these would be, or if there ever was, or if it was just a mythological mountain. I can tell a story to my niece about, you know, the dragon that eats the stars when it's cloudy. It's not, this is not based in any real thing.
Also, in the Jewish tradition, it's the Mount Sinai is supposed to be an insignificant mountain. It's not the highest. It's not the most beautiful. It's not the most abundant in greenery or whatever it is.
So why did God
be
choose
like a symbol of?
Because it's a fucking volcano.
Humble. No, it's the same
that was
thing
a saying. That's in the
or
tradition.
the
Like God,
Moses. It's the
in the tradition, the mountains were boasting about, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one because I'm this. I'm going to be the one because I'm the oldest. I'm the most beautiful. I'm the tallest. And Mount Sinai didn't even claim to be the one. And then God was like, see, I'm going to put it on you. That's the story we were told as kids.
It's a religious trope that...
Except that Sinai was a volcano.
I'll get to that. I have something for that. And I know Lawrence will object to this, but I see comments
that might be one of the sources that we were thinking about. Yeah,
like he chose Moses because he wasn't the most articulate, and because to make his glory known. But if Moses was lacking a testicle, no, deals off.
No, then deals off. Absolutely. Well, you know, I mean, God obviously has to, you know, pop the balls before he picks his prophets.
I mean, the speech impediment that that Moses is supposed to have would have also made him ineligible to serve as a priest.
Maybe it would depend.
So he could have had one testicle. You never know.
Well, I have not felt Moses' balls, so I cannot attest.
How did we get to that?
But it is actually a trope. It is a trope in religion to say
the least is
the greatest. And this is also an excuse for all the inconsistencies in religion. Oh, of course, it's the humble vessel of the virgin womb. Oh, of course, they wouldn't have made up a bunch of hysterical women vouching for Jesus. It must be a true story. Oh, God would never have spoken. Only God could have made an illiterate merchant who couldn't read or write tell the great stories of the Quran. Only God could have, elevated this poor, humble thing, blah, 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 blah. It's the same line that every con man, and especially religious con men, has been using to make their own weaknesses into a selling point.
Only God defies logic and reason.
I wonder if there's a political reason, like a king.
Look, sometimes it's
might have been a younger brother, and he's trying to show it legitimacy.
Yeah. Well, and it's very possible that a second brother showing legitimacy is the reason why half the themes in Genesis are of the second brother superseding the elder because of the blessing of God. Because God,
I gotta say, I was a little confused. I'm sorry. I was just about to reprimand Lilith for speaking over Isaac, and then I spoke over Lilith. I don't know if we have a delay. Maybe there's a delay going on.
Possible.
Possible. Okay.
Don't know.
Because I'm hearing two people talk at the same time, and you may not be aware that we're all talking over each other. So I'm going to try to be conscious of that.
Okay.
On real quick, can you get to the comments, because I'm about to lose the oldest one. And
all right, Eric Wander says, so you can't touch the mountain. You can't.
Wait.
Just a second. You were asking, and other people in chat were asking, if people got banned. So far, I banned 2 Christians for making racist comments towards the panel. So I'm hoping.
What is it about God's love? And why are these Christians not listening to Ken Ham, who tells us that we're all? Yeah, why don't you listen to your own fucking people?
Usually, we don't have to ban people, but if they're calling people the N-word, then that's a ban.
Wow. Yeah, we should tell Ken Ham that he needs to
that's disgusting, but I also find it very confusing, because there was one joke where I was like, oh dear God, we're so white. It was just, I'm sorry.
Y'all are so white.
Yeah, y'all, yeah. It was not a joke.
Nalandra, you're lighting though.
Oh, that's true. It's true. Yes, I'm very white in color.
Okay, so jumping to the comments. Eric Wander says, so you can't touch the mountain, you can't have sex, and you can't see God and live. No wonder the people did a golden calf. It must have been a fucking nightmare to live under Moses and God. And then under Trevor, then Trevor Wright says, what is meant by the word holy? Isn't it ironic when the Bible mentions this word, something terrible happens to those mentioned in it? And how does this prove God is morally good? Well, of course it doesn't.
It doesn't. But it's the concept of the sacred. And that's, that's all religion is wound up in the concept of the sacred. And a lot of people who leave religion entirely discard that concept, because while the awe and the sensations that are driven behind that are very powerful and can be very meaningful to a human being, the amount of evil bullshit that...
And then the next comment is from my favorite username in a while, Pandora's Pinata. Says, where does one audition for the job of distracting the polar bear while Aaron is on? Oh, thank you for that. I have to ride the mute button, actually. And then Levente Gonce says, P-Town, it's great you know of Thomas Paine's importance to the founding of the U.S., but I implore you and everyone heavily to read Christopher Hitchens' biography of Paine. Well, there's another homework assignment, as if I didn't have enough to do.
I have a lot of books to read.
So Thomas Paine wrote a little pamphlet called Common Sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that pretty much jump-started our Revolutionary War. I think that's a synopsis for the audience.
Gotcha.
Okay, let me jump back to my commentary. 12, about put limits for the people. The Samaritan text reads, and you shall set bounds with the mountain round about, possibly relying on verse 23 that we'll read later on. And I Again, I'm putting savage Ibn Ezra here. Place a border on the mount. In verse 23, set bounds about the mount and sanctify it is therefore similar. I dwell on this because the crazy one who inverted the words of the living God in his book said that Moses intended to say, set bounds about the people, but what came out of his mouth was the mount rather than the people.
Shade. Someone's
This is
Wait,
going to be
shade.
Who's he throwing shade on? Ghibli again, whatever his name is?
No, it's not Chivi. But we'll get to Chivi maybe in the next chapter or
Is
something.
he
Because
throwing
he's an
shade on the actual text and saying that it should have said that God would protect the Israelite people and no one would be allowed to touch them?
The comment on this translation says, some identify him with Isaac, son of Solomon Israeli, a court physician to the caliphs of Egypt, and a Cairian, I think Karaite here means. He was a philosopher, Bible commentator, and physician. Shadal, aka Lutzato, identifies him with Jonah ibn Janach.
Okay. So
but
he's,
I think
he's saying some other commentator is very wrong.
Yeah. And when we'll get to Chivi, I think Aaron will love this guy. Verse 13, when the ram's horn sounds a long blast. In Hebrew, it's bemeshoch hayovel. The Septuagint translates, whenever the sounds and the trumpets and the cloud leave the mountain. Possibly to explain the continuation, may they approach the mountain. Sana comments here, Hebrew yovel seems originally to have meant a sheep or a ram, as in Joshua 6 verses 4 to 5. It is also so used in the Punic Marseille tariff in line 7 of the 4th century BCE. However, it came to be restricted to the horn. Yovel lies behind the word jubilee, which was inaugurated by the sounding of the ram's horn in Leviticus 25:9. That's it for my commentary for this part.
All right. Well,
verse 14.
Verse 14, where are we?
You can actually finish this chapter. I think Aaron, you're muted.
Oh.
He's smiling.
Sorry, I was on mute because the dog was going off again.
Yeah,
but
I
anyways,
assumed
okay.
so.
All right, so after Moses had gone down from the mountain to the people, he consecrated them and washed their clothes. Then he said to the people, prepare yourselves for the third day. Abstain from sexual relations, because God doesn't apparently like that smell. I don't know. On the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The Lord descended to the top of the Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, go down and warn the people, so they do not force their way up to see the Lord, and many of them perish. Even the priests who approach the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out against them. And Moses said to the Lord, the people cannot come up Mount Sinai, because you yourself warned us. Put limits around the mountain and set it apart as holy. Don't you remember when you said that, God? You're infallible. It was just yesterday. What the hell? The Lord replied, go down and bring Aaron up with you. But the priests and the people must not force their way to come up to the Lord, or they'll scare me, or he will break out against them. So Moses went down to the people and told them. Thus endeth Exodus 19.
And there's, I have to say, it looks a bit from my perspective like there's an insert here of the 10 Commandments, which come in the next chapter, which we're going to have to leave till next time, and the part from 20, because it reads a lot clearer if you go to Moses spoke and the word of the Lord answered him, and then to 20:18. So I should bring that up next week, the division there, or next episode. But yeah, it's again, a lot of this imagery people have pointed out very consistent with volcanoes.
That was a volcano.
I did not go up the mountain.
Actually, there is a comment by Kasuto here who argues against the volcano interpretation, and I think Lawrence will also. But before I get to that, I have a comment from the 15 abstain from sexual relations. KJV reads, "Come not at your wives," and JPS, do not go near a woman, and Peshita, you shall not touch a woman. The Targum Pseudo Jonathan, abstain from the marriage bed. Rashi comments, do not go near a woman. During the whole of these 3 days, this was in order that the women may immerse themselves on the third day and to be pure to receive the Torah. If they have relations within the 3 days, the woman could involuntarily expel semen after her immersion and become unclean again. After 3 days have elapsed, however, the semen has already become putrid and is no longer capable of fertilization, so it is pure from contaminating the woman who expels it.
The hell?
Yeah.
So semen is impure,
but only when it has the power to create.
Very insecure. Yeah.
So someone determined that spilled semen is still fertile 2 days later.
In fairness, there's very much a Jewish thing about like making a buffer so you don't accidentally. That's why you're allowed to give 40 lashes. They'd only ever give 39 in case they miscounted. So there's very much that buffer zone. But also, I want to know who's expelling after 3 days after intercourse. I don't know.
It might be like they might have thought of it as like an internal thing, like
it's up in there and it might drip out and
or something, and then she become impure from touching it.
But don't worry, even if it spills out, it's still fertile for another day and a half. How do they figure this out?
Science.
Is it intentional to where they said come not at your woman, like come in a different direction from your woman, or don't come
it
to
literally
her.
It reads, do not approach a woman, or do not go near a woman, as JPS says.
Oh, okay. Don't even go near her because you might come, and that's dirty.
It's probably a euphemism for like
that come
which
come
is a euphemism.
into is often used as a euphemism for sex.
But that's the actual
the woman becomes unclean if the semen drips out of her.
Yes.
So she remains clean if it doesn't.
So if she, I think what it's saying is that if you have sex or whatever, you're both unclean, whatever, for 3 days, and then you immerse. Whoa. The problem is that if they immersed on the day that they're supposed to be, or the day before they're supposed to be receiving the Torah, and then after the immersion, the semen comes out again, she's now going to be impure again, and she won't have time to become pure in time to receive.
And the being who simultaneously exists, the being who simultaneously exists in every galaxy at once, gives a shit about this because.
Yep.
Okay.
I thought every sperm was sacred.
All right, I'm going to read a couple of comments that came in on the heels of that. Jeff Montgomery offers $10 and says, this can either go for a decent brew or a half hour of someone's time to distract the beast of Pyrenees.
Aww.
You are, there he is. You are the beast of Pyrenees.
I think that job should needs to get paid with money.
If I didn't live,
you might have to pay to get the job.
I'd
actually,
do it myself. Good boy.
And then Eric Wander says, Moses is the father of modern fitness. I mean, he must have had really strong quads from going up and down that mountain.
That's why he didn't choose the tallest mountain, Isaac.
It was more of a glorified hill.
Yeah.
It's the original CrossFit, running up and down the mountain to talk to God, and then get your brother, and then go back to talk to God, and then Yeah, well, we'll see. There's a whole ordeal about it, but yeah.
Well, the nice thing is that God let him carry the stone tablets down the mountain. He didn't make them carry the stone tablets up the mountain.
Well, that is good. Yes.
Yes,
Hopefully they balanced him.
Maybe
on
he had
the
to.
way
Maybe he
down.
had to take blank ones up with him. Yeah.
You see how
And then-
important it was not for them not to
Yeah.
come up the mountain, just Aaron and Moses too, because they might see behind the curtain. You know, the guy behind the curtain,
Yes.
rumbling the thunder, making the thunder noises.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
And then Trevor and Wright says, I'm glad to watch this channel because it helped me understand the harm religion causes. Thank you so much for that.
That's true.
Okay,
You know, there was a
back-
time when I told my daughter that she should read the Bible, because there was a time when she's got questions about religion. She's getting pressure from a bunch of different directions. And I'm like, don't believe what other people tell you about the Bible, because Christians tell me all the time what the Bible says that it doesn't. And then when I tell them what it does say, they say, no, it doesn't. Then I have to show them. And so you should just read it yourself. And she didn't want to. And I get why she didn't want to. She thought it was kind of a creepy feeling to read this.
It's
It's
also
a
more.
very creepy feeling. I read it at 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am
okay.
still traumatized to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas, there was.
Yeah, I have more.
There
I
was
have more.
one thing I wanted to say.
Sure.
So Lilith brought up an issue with what was it?
23.
Maybe.
Yeah, I noticed this as well, and I have.
Oh, no.
I don't really had the note about Ibn Ezra, but go on.
Oh no, yeah. So about how like it's possible that this bit was inserted, right?
Mhm.
And I think the sort of traditional like explanation for this, where it says God would answer with his own voice, and then the next bit kind of like breaks it up, and then it says Moses says the following. So
Yeah.
I think the way they explain that is they say that God said himself, like the first commandment or the first two or whatever, and the people couldn't handle it. They all died. Everyone
Well,
died.
in the
And
second
then God brought them back to
chapter,
life.
we cover
Oh, yeah.
that the people are freaked out by hearing the voice of God. But it's
Oh yeah, something like that. So I think that might be an explanation for that weird discrepancy.
oh,
So
that
like,
they all died. while
so
he
God
was giving
started speaking.
commandments.
He said he only said one or two. They all died. He brought them back to life, and then they were like, Moses was like, "You can't keep doing this. The people can't handle it." And so then he said it.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Verse 18 here.
zombie cows.
Verse 18, Kasuto writes here, it is possible that the creation of this tradition was originally influenced by the observation of volcanic activity, but there is no reference here, as many have supposed, to volcanic phenomena. The most recent geographical investigations have shown that there are no volcanoes in the regions that merit consideration in our attempts to identify Mount Sinai. Furthermore, the fire of volcanoes goes upward and does not descend from the sky. In this verse, the description of the storm still continues. The smoke is the mist rising from the mountains. The fire is that of lightning, which is regarded as accompanying God in his descent from heaven. And the trembling of the mountain, only the mountain is referred to, and not the ground on which the people stood, is not an earthquake, but a tremor due to the force of the crashing thunder.
So it's not an earthquake; it's just a quaking earth.
Yes, exactly. It's just the mountain is vibrating because of the majesty of God, because of booming.
Because it was a really bad storm.
I'd like
So
to be
he's
clear.
of the opinion that's a storm god and not a volcano.
Not a volcano god. I have only ever really thought that this is like there is definitely some volcanic style imagery which could affect the mythological narrative and the ideas of God visiting a mountain. I don't believe this was actually an account of an event where a volcano was slow erupting and Moses went up the mountain to talk to God. This is, that's not what I'm talking about. There's
another thing is that importantly is that Sinai isn't where these commentators are believing that Sinai is. Mm-hmm. So the story of the volcano that inspired all the volcanic imagery is reputed to be from a number of different volcanoes as far away as Arabia. So it depends on who you're asking as to where the Sinai mountain, where these things came from. But it's a collection of different stories that are kind of like blended together with some tropes borrowed by other cultures.
Tropes.
That makes sense
Tropes
as
is a
well.
good word
Yeah.
for it. Tropes is what you want to think of.
Yeah.
Or as Dawkins would say, it's a meme that, the smoke and the thunder and the, the lightning and the trembling comes with the power of God. So I have no doubt that at some point a volcano exploded and everyone said, God is after us, at some point. Or
if you are if you're from a culture that somebody can put their hand in their jacket and pull out and their hand is white, and put their hand back in the jacket, pull out and their hand is flesh colored again, and you think, oh, wow, that proves God. If you're that dumb, what would a volcano do to your psyche? There would be no more. If you think tornadoes or dust devils, if you think dust devils are literal devils, what would a volcano do? That would be the most impressive thing imaginable.
It's still very impressive and terrifying. I don't want to be near it. I'll watch from a safe distance, but it's not something I feel the need to come and touch. Again, maybe, people who went up the mountain to see what was going on and didn't come back down. There's a very standard, both religious and just literary trope of not touching. Don't touch. The hero. What did
Emperor Cusco? No touchy.
What did Sheldon say? Or that was looking. There's a well-known, prohibition on looking. The hero always looks. It never ends well. It's the same thing, the forbidden thing, and then someone will inevitably do the forbidden thing and they'll die.
Shock and awe.
I have two more comments about verse 20. The Lord descended to the top. Targum Onkelos and Saadia Gaon translate, the Lord revealed himself on Mount Sinai. Rashi comments based on the Mechilta de Rabbi Ishmael, one might think then that he actually came down upon it. Therefore, it states in Exodus 20:19, ye have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven. These two texts together teach us that he bent down the upper and lower heavens and spread them out over the top of the mountain like a bedspread over a bed, and the throne of glory descended upon it. I like Lila's reaction to my commentary.
God descending, the heaven descended.
Well,
I just got a whole bunch of nasty visuals.
It was a fog.
The glass dome that is the sky, he just pulled it down and punched it into the top of the mountain.
In verse 22, the priests. So Sana comments here. According to Exodus 28 and 29, the priesthood was not established in Israel until after the Sinaitic revelation, which would make the present reference to priests, like that in verse 24, an anachronism. Many modern scholars regard these verses as reflecting a different strand of tradition about the origins of the priestly institution. Jewish commentators, like the Talmud 115b, Ibn Ezra and Rashbam, understood priests here as referring to firstborn males, in that the latter functioned as priests until they were replaced by the Aaronites, as recounted in Numbers 3 verses 11 to 13 and 8 verses 16 to 18.
Oh, yes. The ordination via genocide. That's always a fun one. We'll get there. But yeah, I did notice the reference to priests when priests have not yet been established. And indeed, very little has been organized because they've, been running away, as you do, from slavery, as you do. And they're in the middle of the desert.
You mentioned also about verse 23, and I just saw a comment by Ibn Ezra that I should have included, but because of time constraints, I don't think I should. I see the comments piling up.
Yeah, let me run through those, but I want you to be finished with what you're doing, Tomer. We'll just finish with these. Okay, so
sure.
Complete your commentary.
Okay, so about the verse 23. So he writes here, Saadia Gaon says that he contemplated this verse for many years and could not understand its meaning until he came across a book dealing with the customs of the Persian kings, in which it is stated that a king's messenger does not have permission to tell the king that he has accomplished his mission until the king commands him to do another task. Only then may he tell the king. However, I believe that because God told Moses, lest they break through unto the Lord to the gate, to gaze, Moses did not know whether he had to warn the people not to gaze. He had already warned them that they were not to pass the boundary. God then told Moses, go get thee down and charge them as I commanded you. For Israel needed to be charged as second time.
And again, we have evidence that this was compiled after the rule of Persia began as the empire that took over from Babylon. Not that it was necessarily all written before that time, but some of it would have been sourced from pre-existing documents. But it was compiled by writers who exited from the Babylonian exile, coming from Persia and under Persian rule and Persian traditions and their kings and laws, who are then assembling a whole unified tradition for their people to establish themselves back in their ancestral land. Honestly, it would be like indigenous peoples of the Americas having to come up with a unified story for all of them in order to get their land back. It would be a very strange story because that's a lot of different peoples.
All right, are we ready, Tomer, for the final comments?
I'm done. I'm done. That's it.
Thank you, sir. All right, so Rodney says, Aaron, you opened my eyes about religion. Everyone thinks I'm crazy to even question that the Bible is a lie. I feel you. I live in Texas. I feel you. And then
Question,
Alto.
the Bible is a lie.
What's that?
He said question and the Bible is a lie.
Yeah, everyone thinks they're crazy to even question that the Bible is a lie.
It's a lot of little lies.
Should be the other way around.
He messed up, Isaac.
Yeah, we know what he meant.
Yeah.
Alto says, speaking of volcanic activity, is hot sauce a sin or maybe proof of God? First it burns your mouth and later it makes you repent as it makes its way out the other end.
Well, I know someone who carries around a bit of spice with them. What would you say?
I can make this come out in your sweat and your urine.
I feel no need to season my food with either of those elements.
And then Kent McLeod Jr. says, maybe a dumb question, but what is the symbolic significance of volcanoes in religion?
I think it's the symbolic significance of, at least as far as I know, of all majestic, dramatic, and terrifying things.
It's ancient. There's ancient associations with volcanoes. I think it's either Chile, the one with the Andes. They would sacrifice children to appease the volcano gods. It's like this illusion that you can control the uncontrollable. You can control Godzilla coming and wrecking the entire coastline, you know? Like the volcanoes go off, what happens? Tidal waves if you're on the coast and things blow up and stuff, and it's devastation. And so we have sinned, and if we could just be better and please this God better. And also, like, that's why kind of like some of the pagan gods better, like the Greek gods, they're flawed gods. They're not omnibenevolent, omniscient, because that explains why bad things like an entire village blowing up from a volcano or being flooded by a tsunami, it's a capricious God who's very hard to...
And yet, if you appease Taka, she becomes Tafiti.
Then she becomes nurturing. And that's, again, in Hinduism, you see this, I think this version I'm most familiar with, where a god or goddess will have two aspects, the light or bright. Even Shiva's wife has two aspects, Parvita being the more benevolent goddess destroyer, and Kali being the dark aspect, the destroyer, the blood drooling rage, all of feminine rage and darkness. And it seems to me that in every region, if you look at whatever the most wildly uncontrollable and terrifying natural phenomenon, that is the highest god. You know, in volcanic islands, the volcano god is the most powerful god. In the plains that the Mongols rode across, the sky god is the most powerful god. In various, and the Nile in Egypt is, connected with life most, and then only after that is life and death itself.
Rain gods and agricultural gods were often placated with human sacrifice because we need to eat. We're all going to starve.
It's better to save us all by sacrificing one. Obviously, it didn't. actually change anything, but that's what they thought it was doing. And it also comes from the evolved, and I know you've pointed this out, Aaron, the evolved tendency to personify, natural things and attribute intention to them. Why is the wind blowing? Well, because air rises more off of the water than off of the land, and that creates it. No, it's because the west wind is sad or angry, and the south wind is fruitful, and the north wind is, the cold of winter or whatever. It's a more interesting story.
Personification.
It makes for great tales.
Mm-hmm. And these tales, I don't know if I would call them good, as in like they're really riveting reading or something, but like look at them. They beyond the factual accuracy, they solidify the identity of the ancient Hebrews to the point where like Isaac learned these stories as true, even though his are your parents recent immigrants or have been in England a long time?
My dad was born in England, but his parents came after the war, and my mum was born in USSR, and then her family were allowed out, and they went to Israel, and then she came to England.
But
then
can
they
you
brought
count
their
back
stories.
to the 10th generation?
We don't have records going back more than like 6 generations.
Not written records, certainly, but at the same time, it's
a lot of stuff missing.
Yeah, it's hard to keep records that long.
And of the ones we do have records, we have a lot of people missing.
Yeah, no doubt. But Judaism, I think, has always, and from its inception here, been as much about creating a communal narrative and connection and meaning behind these rituals that draws all together as a unified group, which was what they needed to do to survive and to get, back to their land and rebuild there.
National identity.
Exactly. National identity. These are the tales of national identity. It's no more true than, George Washington and the apple tree.
What does it mean to be holy? It means to be set apart.
The sacred.
I've got a couple more comments that I need to read. Levente Gunche has a couple in here. It says, me harping on this for the last time, no promises, on historical figures being deists, I have potentially contentious pedantic take. And then, I know many disagree, but it matters none. Atheism is only the lack of theisms, influencing God, acceptance. So deism, being mutually incompatible with theism, is not theism, it's atheism. Okay.
Who was it who said that deism, or what is it, pantheism is just sexed up atheism and deism is watered down theism? Although I think in the context of the early church fathers, or the early fathers of America, it would, certainly be most closely
Isn't
atheism.
deism a subset of theism? Because theism doesn't imply
deism is acceptance of the natural world with a God to start it, but then the God removes itself, so it doesn't answer prayers or any of that.
Right.
Yeah, there's no
theism imply that it's a
history.
personal God, or does theism?
No, not a personal God. And even Einstein, who is often confused with these people, said that he didn't believe in a personal God either.
He was a pantheist.
So he believed that nature, followed a deterministic course, perhaps.
But again, according to its own natural laws, he identified the awe that we feel in natural phenomena and with a sort of religious feeling, which I believe it is the same kind of experience. But
he also said that from the perspective of a Christian, that Christians should consider
an atheist.
Einstein to have been an atheist.
From the point of view of a Jesuit priest, I am and always have been an atheist. Yeah. And that's many people who were called deists. And remember, politicians, you gotta, shine the edges off your opinion sometimes. Which is why I'm not in politics.
So Charlie Melone, and I'm don't think I said that right, but it was my best attempt.
Maloney?
Says, I'm very grateful to my grandparents for raising me Quaker. They taught me to seek truth, simplicity, and equality, and most importantly, accepted my atheism.
Yes.
Then Eric Wander, and congratulations for that. Eric Wander said, Tomer, thanks for staying so late to talk about the Bible.
Thank you. And I sincerely apologize for the technical issues that I had. I did not expect this. I hope my points were given through concisely. And if not, I sincerely apologize. I hope that my internet will be better in the next week.
You're fine now. You're normally fine.
I'm fine now, but I hope that these kind of issues will not happen again.
We all have a glitch now and then. It happens.
Everybody was pulling for you, Tomer. They were clap in the comments for Tomer.
Totally.
Clap if you believe in Tomer.
I do believe in Tomer. I do believe in Tomer. I do.
All right. So I don't know if we're going to be doing this on Wednesday next, or if we're going to be doing it on Saturday after the Wednesday. But either
it depends
of those.
only on you, Aaron.
No, it doesn't, because I am not.
Really?
I am not going to step into the 10 Commandments without Lawrence on here.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
That's a
The
good
20th
point.
is next Saturday, is the question. Are we doing the 20th?
I can do both. I could do Wednesday and Saturday, but it like I said, it comes down to Lawrence. I am not going to walk through the 10 Commandments without Lawrence here.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, if you're gonna be there, Mr. P-Town, you better come loaded for bear.
I will say that this will probably be.
Did you say loaded with beer?
That too, but loaded for bear. You know.
Oh, did I misunderstand the criteria again?
Loaded for bear?
Yeah.
I will say.
Like, don't bring your puny arguments. Bring the strong, shotgun with the whatever. Art knows the bear gun. You know, which one is it?
Is it Texas?
Well, I thought I did. I came loaded with beer. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be loaded with beer.
Shotgun, too many.
Maybe watermelon flavored beer.
Exodus 20 will probably be my hardest, the hardest commentary that I had to work on, because there's a lot to be said from any perspective, and I have no idea where to go.
You can trim it down. You can trim it down to just like point counterpoint a little bit. I know 2 Jews, 3 opinions, but unfortunately we cannot cover all of Talmudic literature on this.
I know.
It's
that's the issue. Books were written about the 10 Commandments. This is such a big, important subject.
Entire books have been written about a single commandment.
Yes.
If you want to see me and Tomer argue the Talmud, come to the Discord server.
Maybe.
Indeed, and check the description in this video. Lawrence's Discord is down here. Check out his show tomorrow. But the next one we do, whether it's going to be on the Wednesday or the Saturday after that, we're going to be doing Exodus 20. I'm sure just by itself, there's no way we're going to be able to handle anything else. But the next few chapters I'm really excited about, because there's 21, 22, 23, all the way up to 34. Yeah. I'm going to have so much fun with the next few chapters. Looking forward to it.
Me too.
This is off topic kind of, but I see Ivory Darkness is in the comments, and we were supposed to meet him today, and Minute Rice, and they were trying. There can be only one, speaking of hot sauce, that really hot wing at a bar about 20 minutes from us. So I was wondering if they were still there, because we could pop on over if they are, because they came. Ivory Darkness came all the way from Utah.
Oh, you've got to go have a wing and a beer then. That's
just to
as you do.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep, as you do.
As you do.
All right. So did I read the last one?
No, you didn't. You didn't.
To clarify, if you are convinced of a not intervening God, or a deist, you cannot be, and therefore aren't convinced of an intervening God, which is atheism. We're getting into really deep semantics here, so I'm not even
I
going
personally
to
don't
I
think
can
so, but
tentatively accept that argument, but I will. I think
Yeah,
everybody
call
should be able
up
to qualify
Jimmy's
their
show and ask him and Matt about whether theism is a subset
Yes.
of theism or not.
That'll get you a
That
whole
sounds like a
show.
plan. And I am going to go eat some flaming hot wings. So,
My sympathies to your digestive tract later in the evening.
Yeah. Until next time.
yeah. Goodbye, everybody.